The 1990s were a wonderful time for most of us. They were a simpler time and also a very optimistic time, you know? The internet was going to bring us all together. It was going to make the world a smaller place. We could talk to anyone we wanted to, anytime we liked, for free. And yet, we didn't necessarily make friends all around the world. We begin to discover that sometimes the more that we know about people, sometimes the less that we like them. You may see your neighbor in the street and you smile and you tip your hat and you say hello. But then you see a post or something that they've liked on social media and you recognize that that sense of kinship that you felt may not necessarily be as strong as it was. In Italian, there is a wonderful proverb: la troppa confidenza fa perdere la viverenza. Right? Ah. Grazie. Sometimes, when we know too much, we can lose respect for other people. We're also experiencing another phenomenon, one of social density. We are experiencing a world with so many different people in it. Friends of ours, but also celebrities as well. People we've never even met are influencing us from a great distance. But sometimes the company that you're in is what makes the occasion, right? That's what makes things special. And good company can turn a boring occasion into a fun one. And bad company can turn a great occasion into not a good one at all. Sometimes being with someone that you don't necessarily like can kind of spoil the environment. It's a little bit like being stuck in an elevator at a baked bean convention. Not always a fun place to be. The more that we learn about each other, we also find little things to disagree on. There's a phenomenon called Girardian conflict. And it's where people who have a great many things in common, who should be good friends and brothers and sisters, end up fighting each other. They find some small, trivial thing to fight with each other over. And that's what social media amplifies. It helps us to spot the small ways in which we are different. We are also starting to see a very strong politicization of all kinds of topics that used to not be political at all. Prom dresses, coffee shops, video games. Suddenly these simple, everyday, common topics come loaded with a political narrative. And some people see, freedom versus coercion, and other people think it's a clash of civilization versus barbarism. And other people see oppressors and people who want to be free. And everyone has their own particular lens in which they see the world. And often that leads people to feel very, very strongly about things that 10 or 20 years ago they would not have cared about at all. Also, we have a wonderful new hobby, a new form of leisure in our society today. I call it recreational outrage. When we go online and we share memes, and it drives our emotions. Our emotional state in our brain makes us want to do certain things. If we feel in love, we want to build a little nest. If we feel sad, we want to withdraw from the world. But if we feel angry, we want to take action. We want to do something. And so when people spread angry emotion and angry ideas, that drives other people to take action, to share those things. And so it creates a kind of a vicious storm. The people who share things the most, the people who are the most angry, are the ones that we tend to pay attention to. And so the loudest voices in every group, in every moral tribe, can make that tribe look like some sort of horrible caricature. We're also starting to see another phenomenon, one of the Overton window. The Overton window describes the space in which people can have a civil conversation about something. Some topics are okay and some topics are not so okay, right? But what we have today, because we don't have one media, we don't have one narrative, we have many different narratives, is that this window where people can have a civil conversation is splitting. It's pulling in multiple different directions. And it means that it's now very difficult to have a civil conversation with other people. Sometimes, even the words that we use to have a conversation can mean different things to different people. This polarization is starting to filter out of the online world. It is following us offline. And it is showing up in things like employment, different sectors of our economy have very strong polarizations, one way or another. And it means that if you want to go into one of these industries, but you don't have the polarization that matches, it can be very, very difficult to have a successful career. We see furthermore in the world of education, there are some colleges in the world today that have a ratio of 100 to 1 of polarization. What this means is that educational environments are not always welcoming to people of certain polarizations. Furthermore, most of our science comes from academia as well. And public trust in academia and public trust in science is likely to be weakened if polarization continues to be as strong as it is. Over the years, in different parts of this world, nations have decided that certain personal characteristics are not cool to discriminate on. But in a world where having the wrong polarization can mean that somebody really doesn't like you, or doesn't want to date you, or doesn't want to employ you, or doesn't want to live with you, it makes me wonder if perhaps it may be time to think about protecting political affiliation from discrimination as well. And I'm sure many of you are thinking, but surely this is something you can choose. Not necessarily. Research is teaching us that perhaps 40% of the strength of our political affiliations are due to our genes. And one of the strongest predictors of a successful marriage is sharing the same political values as your spouse. So these things continue through the generations. I want to share something with you. For me, this is a little bit personal. And the reason for that is that I grew up in Northern Ireland, a place with very, very strong polarizations, with powerful tribes that have had a very long-standing conflict over generations. It wasn't a very nice place to grow up in at the time, but it's not like that today. Today, Northern Ireland is a truly beautiful country with very warm, passionate, and kind people. You really should come and visit. But there are reasons for why it is so nice and why it was once not so nice. About 20 years ago, we had an agreement. We came together as a little nation and we decided to put limits on how far the conflict could spread. As a nation, we decided that it wasn't fair for some people to be locked out of certain companies or certain professions or certain educational opportunities or certain housing opportunities just because of their political affiliation. I believe that perhaps something like the agreement that changed Northern Ireland for the better so much might be very useful for the culture war that we have today. Perhaps we need something like a Geneva Conventions for the culture war to help digital civilians and refugees, the family and friends of people afflicted by political violence, to be safer, to contain conflict and preserve the innocent. I would like to start a conversation about this topic, to gather in ideas and explore how we might be able to build peace in our world today. Because I really don't want to see anything like Northern Ireland ever come back again in any part of the world. And I'll finish on this point. Having rules of engagement is perhaps useful, but what may be even more useful is teaching our children how to have a civil disagreement. This is, I believe, one of the most important things we can do in our world today. And it's not just about skills. It's about character as well. It's about having the humility to admit that maybe we don't know the absolute truth about everything. Having the courage to update and change our beliefs if new evidence comes to mind. And also about having the compassion to see our foe as another human being who's just trying to understand the world the same way that we are. The compassion necessary to realize that just because someone has a different opinion, it doesn't make them a bad person. I would like to paraphrase the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. The means we use must be as pure as the ends we seek. Thank you.